What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Mock Draft Guy YouTube channel. Today is a very, very special video that I always cannot wait to get out to you guys. It is honestly one of my favorite. I know I say that about every single video that I put out, but this is definitely one of my favorite videos that I put out just because it gets so many people talking. There's so many different opinions flying around. And then, of course, if you guys remember, you could always come back and call me what a jackass I am for getting most of these predictions wrong. But of course, if you didn't pick up from the title, it is my 2023-24 NFL record predictions for each team in the NFL. And we're going to go above and beyond to the playoffs and Super Bowl and all that kind of stuff. So as you guys see, I'm not going to go game by game. We all don't want to sit here for hours on end explaining why I picked the Jaguars over the Indianapolis Colts in week 1 and all that kind of stuff. We all don't want to see that. I think we could agree on that. So I did this part already. I sat down for a really long time, really thought it out for all of these predictions for all of these teams. And of course, not everyone's going to like them. Not everyone's going to agree. That's perfectly fine. Before we get into it, if you guys have a differing opinion, please comment below. Please like the video. And please, more importantly, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. This is really the start of when my content gets going. We get more football focused. We look towards the 2024 prospects. We're looking towards the draft prospects, all that kind of stuff, game picks. I got a lot of stuff coming out this year, so you don't want to miss it. Please subscribe to the channel. Now, we're going to get into it. Like I said, you've probably seen the majority of these picks. There's only 2 divisions, I'm pretty sure, that aren't showing on the screen right now, but we're going to go from the top down on both sides. So right away, we have the AFC West on the top here. And at the number 1 overall seed in the entire conference, you have the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I mean, there really should be no explanation. This shouldn't need an explanation, rather. I feel like the team has gotten better in certain aspects. The offensive line could come into question. Now you have Jawan Taylor and Donovan Smith bookending the tackle positions for Patrick Mahomes, but also weapons were a concern last year that proved to be, it didn't even matter. They're getting Justin Ross back, who was an undrafted free agent after a bunch of injuries in college. He was injured all of last year. There's a reason why they kept an undrafted free agent on the roster. The kid is going to be really good. They drafted Rashee Rice as well. They drafted Felix Anudike-Uzomah, which was one of my favorite players. I think this team is just going to be right there at the top of the conference like they usually are. With Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce and all those guys, I don't really think anyone can stop them from being the number 1 seed. Then you have the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, before people see the Chargers and the Broncos and the Steelers and the Browns and all those teams that aren't in the playoffs, this is a super, super competitive conference. This is probably the most competitive we've ever seen. The NFL in general. I mean, the NFC is clearly weaker than the AFC, but I mean, it is super, super close on the AFC side. I didn't want to bounce. Half of the teams that I bounced in this whole prediction video, I didn't even want to bounce. It was really, really tough. But the fact of the matter is here, the Chargers are going to be one of those teams that's on the fringe to begin with. They just play in a super tough division, in a super tough conference. They have a tough schedule as well. Just being in that division gives them a really, really tough schedule in terms of strength of schedule. But I think that they're going to do really well under the Kellen Moore-led offense, which is super complex for some reason. But I just think they're going to fall a little bit short. And I think that this will be the end of Brandon Staley as the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. Then I think you can get a more offensive mind under there. This honestly would have been a different video if Sean Payton somehow went to the Los Angeles Chargers. I feel like Payton and Justin Herbert working together would have been fantastic, but I have them at 9-8 here, just missing the playoffs. Kind of the same deal with the Denver Broncos. I think the Broncos are going to be much, much improved. I think Sean Payton is going to be the catalyst behind that improvement. I think last year was a fluke for Russell Wilson. I think he's going to get back to some of his best football. It's just unfortunate that they play in the AFC, and this isn't a team, to me, to be quite honest with you, that screams as a contender. A lot of people have them at 10-7. I even saw some at 11-6. All these numbers are very, very possible for both of these teams. I could easily see the Chargers being 7-10. I could see them being 12-5. There's just really no in between. there's so many games that are just so tough to call. But I think the Denver Broncos and the Los Angeles Chargers fall in that unfortunate category of, I think that they're a good team, but I don't think that they're some of the best in the conference itself. And then you have the Raiders, who unfortunately have the worst division in the AFC for me. And this was really, really tough because, I mean, the Raiders don't have a bad team on paper. You know, they still have Devontae Adams. They added Michael Mayer. They added Jacoby Myers. They added Jimmy Garoppolo. They got rid of Derek Carr. To me, that's a downgrade, in my opinion. Going from Derek Carr to Jimmy Garoppolo, I really think that people are going to see that the reason why the Raiders have been so poor the last few years was not because of Derek Carr, was because of how brutally bad their defense is. And that's really where my concerns lie with the Las Vegas Raiders, is defensively, they did make improvements, but if you look at that depth chart, it's one of the worst units in all of the AFC. Now, you could argue, Jacorian Bennett was a great, mid-round pick. That's all well and good. I agree with you there. Tyree Wilson is going to be great, I believe. That doesn't make up for the fact that the secondary just isn't there. The linebacking corps is not great either. I think that they're going to get exposed. I think this is an offense that's going to put up points. Don't get me wrong. Jimmy Garoppolo knows how to win everywhere he goes, but I think he's going to have a sour taste in his mouth after a season with the Las Vegas Raiders. Then you move down to the NFC North. And I have the Cincinnati Bengals at 12-5, a little bit tentatively. This all depends on the health of Joe Burrow. I'm not going to lie. I don't really know the specifications of the injury. I think it was a grade 2 hamstring strain or something like that. Out for 4 to 6 weeks. So he's really cutting it close in terms of being 100% for the start of the season. This is a really, really great team, and this is going to be the best offensive line that Joe Burrow has played behind in the NFL. I think that that's really it. The defense hasn't really changed that much. Besides for the offensive line, the offense hasn't really changed that much. You add Chase Brown in there. Samaje Perine is gone, but they still have Joe Mixon. I just think it's going to be more of the same. They got a much improved offensive line. They have incredible weapons, and they have a great quarterback in Joe Burrow. And their defense is good enough. So hopefully another year of experience with Cam Taylor-Britt, he could take the next step and be like a true number 1 or number 2 option on the boundary. I think they're going to kind of more of the same. They're going to be a great team. This is going to be a team that's going to be great for many, many years to come. And then you have the Baltimore Ravens here, who I have as a wild card team. It's unfortunate at 11-6. That's just how good this conference is, how the NFL is. I mean, it's truly unpredictable. But Lamar Jackson is healthy. He is paid. And those are the two biggest things that were a concern for me. He has weapons now, or better weapons, I should say. We don't know what we're going to get from Odell Beckham. Zay Flowers looks like an absolute stud. Hopefully Rashad Bateman and Devin Duvernay could stay healthy. And, of course, Mark Andrews. And the offensive line, Ronnie Stanley, that's another guy that needs to stay healthy throughout the entire year. I think that this is going to be a really, really good team. I think last year was, even though they made the playoffs, I think last year was a fluke. Lamar Jackson, unfortunately, the last 6 games of the last 2 years, he hasn't played. I think if he stays healthy, this is an easy 11-win team in the AFC. Then you have the Steelers at 9-8. Now, I know the Steelers are much, much improved. They really are. And I still think that Kenny Pickett's development is 1 year away from taking them to the cusp of being a perennial playoff team. Their offensive line is relatively new. Isaac Seumalo, Broderick Jones, these guys have to learn how to play together. They have to learn how to gel. The defense is pretty good. I mean, you got TJ Watt, you got Minkah Fitzpatrick, of course. Just off that, you're going to be really good. Adding Joey Porter Jr. and some of the guys that they did, and Keanu Benton as well. They're going to play major roles. I just think that, like I said, the Steelers are very, very much improved. So is the rest of the AFC, to be quite honest with you. They are going to be one of those teams that just falls in that category where I think that they're good. They're just not good enough to compete for the playoffs this year. That doesn't mean that the Steelers are an enigma. The Steelers are a team that we can't even say we could see them going under 500 because they had never gone under 500 under Mike Tomlin. So that's something that I think is inconceivable at this point. I think 9-8 is fair. You could sprinkle in a 10-7, maybe even 11-6, depending on how Kenny Pickett develops. I think he is that dude, and I think he is the franchise quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it's just going to take one more year. And then you have the Cleveland Browns here, another team. I think their offense could be sneaky, really, really good. The defense, of course, Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett, guys like that you have. But again, they play in a super tough division in a super tough conference. They might just be the scapegoat for the last place team in the division at 8-9. Then you move on to the AFC East. Now this was brutal. I mean, coming from a Jet fan as well, I tried to be as non-biased as possible. I really did try my hardest, believe you me. 11-6 and 11-6 tied for the division lead. The Bills, I guess, get it off of head-to-head matchup. The Buffalo Bills winning the AFC East. I think it's a little bit more of the same. I think this is a team that got, I don't want to say worse. I don't think that they got worse. I think they got slightly better. They added some really nice pieces in the draft as well. Free agency, they did what they could for the most part. I think they're still a great team. Josh Allen's a great quarterback. I think their Super Bowl window is closing a little bit, though. I really do. I think that this has to be the year that they really, really go for it. And Josh Allen just has to stop trying to play hero ball. Last year, he played too much of I'll do it myself type of football. And I'm not going to say that he cost the Bills a lot of games, but he cost them, a lot in terms of putting the defense back on the field too early, costly turnovers for no reason, all that kind of stuff. So if he can clean up his act and get back to his best football, there's no reason to see why the Buffalo Bills wouldn't win the AFC East. And then you have the New York Jets at 11-6 as well. Super tough beginning of the schedule for the New York Jets. The first 4 weeks are hell, to be honest with you. If they could survive the first 4 weeks going 2-2, I think that they're in business. The schedule gets a little bit easier from there for the most part. And I think that they're going to be good. This team's success coming from a Jet fan hinders purely on the offensive line play. I really don't think that Aaron Rodgers is going to flop. I think he's still the second most talented quarterback we've ever seen in NFL history. I think that the talent, despite him being 39 or 40, however old he is, I think that it's going to shine through. I don't think we have to worry about that. The weapons are there. The defense is clearly there. The pass rush looks unstoppable so far in training camp and a couple preseason games. The offensive line is terrible. If the Jets can maybe swing a trade, maybe get, Lyle Collins, Jonah Williams, someone from Cincinnati that is disgruntled over there. I'm thinking more Lyle Collins than Jonah Williams. They just need something. They need to swing something. The tackle position is a disaster. Max Mitchell, Mekhi Becton, Dwayne Brown, Billy Turner. It's not good. They need to protect their number one asset, and it's Aaron Rodgers. As long as they can protect him and he can make plays, I think the Jets easy win 11 games. Miami Dolphins, same thing. The Dolphins just have to stay healthy. We already got a taste of it from before training camp even started with Jalen Ramsey. They have to stay healthy. Tua has to stay healthy. I think if Tua stays healthy, he has a record-setting year with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. And I think that the offense really does carry them. Xavier Howard took a massive step back last year. That's why it was so important to get someone like Jalen Ramsey. I will say I think Cam Smith will step up in a big way in his rookie season. I think that he will kind of, make losing Jalen Ramsey for a little while a little bit better. I think he's going to be super, super solid for them. But I think as long as these guys stay healthy, I think that they're a playoff team. I don't think their defense is that great. I think once Jalen Ramsey comes back, they will be playing better. I think the offense carries them to 10 wins. And then you have the New England Patriots, who are kind of default, the worst team in the AFC East. And really on paper, they are the worst team in the AFC East. Bill Belichick is a slippery fella. I could see them winning 4 games. I could see them winning 9. It's just I think the divisional play is really going to kill them. I don't think that they're going to walk into MetLife Stadium this year and beat the crap out of the Jets. I don't think they're going to beat the crap out of the Jets at home either. Same deal with Buffalo. I think it's pretty much standard procedure that Buffalo will probably beat them 2 times. And I think Miami's high-powered offense gets the best of them too. Of course, they'll probably sneak a win in there, but I think that's really the catalyst for their downfall. I think that they're the worst team in the division. They have the worst quarterback in the division. And I think that this is truly the end of Bill Belichick. I've been saying that for like 3 years, but I think this is actually the end. Moving on, you have the AFC South. Now, this is pretty straightforward. The Jaguars far and away have the best team in the division. 10-7, I feel like is a basement for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They could win 12 games this year. They could even win 13. They have an incredibly high-powered offense. If Trevor Lawrence takes another step, we could easily see him enter the MVP race. Their defense is more than solid. The pass rush is a little bit of an issue. I would have liked to see them try and trade for Danielle Hunter or get someone like Zadarius Smith or something like that. Even sign Jadeveon Clowney. Just get some type of veteran pass rusher in there. Regardless of that, I still think the defense is good enough. Tyson Campbell is an absolute stud. He's going to take another step forward as one of the top 10 cornerbacks in the NFL this year. I think easy they win 10 games. This is a basement for me, like I said. The Titans, another weird spot here. This is a team, Mike Vrabel just leads this team to wins. They play an ugly brand of football for the most part, especially on offense. Defensively, I think they're pretty good. They have one of the better defensive units in the AFC, to be quite honest with you. I just think their offense, despite adding DeAndre Hopkins, despite getting some of the guys that they did, I just think it's just blah. It's just not a great offense, especially passing offense. The offensive line is still a little bit jumbled up. I know that they signed, I think it was Andre Dillard. They drafted Peter Skoronski. So they got a couple decent pieces there. They have to gel together. I think this is finally the year that the Jacksonville Jaguars fully take over as the best team in the AFC South. Then you have the Indianapolis Colts, where I feel like 7 wins honestly might be generous. But I think Anthony Richardson, as long as Anthony Richardson could be ready to play football week 1, he's going to have growing pains. There's no doubt about it. He was the most raw quarterback out of the entire class. He has the highest ceiling, far and away the highest ceiling. I think the success of the Indianapolis Colts hinders on the development of Anthony Richardson. And I think that he is going to have a rough start, and I think he's going to figure it out. 7-10, honestly, for this Indianapolis Colts unit. As long as their offense could kind of click towards the middle part and the end of the season, I think you got something cooking for 2024. I just can't see it this year with a rookie quarterback as green as Anthony Richardson. Same deal with the Houston Texans. This is a team that is on the up. They're on the up. I mean, they got C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson in the first round. D'Amico Ryans is the head coach. I feel like this is a safe spot for a first-year head coach with a bad roster. They got some really good pieces in some good places. John Mechie is coming back as well. Their wide receiver room isn't really that inspiring, even with Tank Dell and John Mechie. Nico Collins and Robert Woods, nothing really kind of does it for me. That's a solid group, and nothing really takes it over the top. The offensive line is much better. They got Shaq Mason as well. They drafted Juice Scruggs. I think that they're going to show signs of improvement. They're not just going to roll over and die like they did with most games last year. I think Stroud is the most accurate quarterback, to be quite honest with you, out of the rookie quarterback class. And I think he's going to do really, really well. I think he has the lowest ceiling out of all of them, but that's not to say that he's not going to be a great quarterback in the NFL. I think we're going to see signs this year. Unfortunately, the roster just isn't good enough to justify more than 6 or 7 wins to me right now. And we're going to move on to the NFC side here. In the first overall seed, at the top of the NFC East, you have the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, 12-5 to some people might seem low. I was even considering going 11-6. This is a team that has, I believe, the 3rd or 4th toughest schedule. They went from having, I believe it was like the 3rd toughest in the division last year to the toughest in the division and one of the most tough and one of the more tough ones in the NFC itself. Really couldn't get that sentence out there. That was some trouble, to be honest with you. But this, regardless, still I think they have the best offensive line in football, even though they lost Isaac Seumalo, who had a career year last year. Jalen Hurts is that dude. I don't know why people still think he's not. I think he's incredible, especially in this offense. Sure, they lost Miles Sanders, but I feel like with this offensive style, really any above-average running back could play as well as Miles Sanders did last year. And the defense is super good, and they got, 3 steals, to be honest with you, in the first few rounds with Kelee Ringo, Nolan Smith, and Jalen Carter. Those guys are going to slot in and just be absolute menaces for this defense. I can't wait to see them play on the field. I think 12-5, again, is like pretty middling ground. Maybe 11-6, 10-7 is the basement, and the ceiling could be 13-4, 14-3, something like that. Dallas Cowboys, major improvements on the defensive side. Adding Stephon Gilmore, I think, is huge. He's not asked to be a number 1 corner anymore, which is huge. I think he's going to play tremendous. He's going to be like a James Bradbury type for me. for what James Bradberry did for the Eagles defense, I could easily see Stephon Gilmore doing that for the Dallas defense this year. And then, of course, getting Mazi Smith in the first round, I think that is huge. Runs up the middle. Dallas were terrible last year. Adding a 6'3", 337-pound athletic freak that Mazi Smith is going to be huge for that defense. Offense is high-powered as usual. I fully expect Tony Pollard to come back healthy and strong. I think Deuce Vaughn is going to play a huge role in this offense too. I think they're going to be really, really good this year. And you have the Giants as a surprise. A lot of people might be surprised that I don't have the Giants in the playoffs. It's just the way the seeding went. I mean, this is a team that is improved on offense, but still has a lot of holes. You're asking Darren Waller to essentially be the number one target besides for Saquon Barkley. After an injury-riddled year, they traded a third-round pick for him. He's not getting any younger. He's pretty injury-prone. I think that's a big ask. And they didn't really make – Jalen Hyatt was a good pick, and I believe it was the third round or early fourth. Paris Campbell was a cool signing. I think they should have invested a little bit earlier for another weapon. The offensive line, they added John Michael Schmitz, which was nice. I still think their guard play is really going to be bad. Adding John Michael Schmitz was actually huge because their center play was probably, after losing Nick Gates, was probably going to be really, really bad this upcoming season. So that alleviates that a little bit. Defensively, Deontay Banks is going to be the number one corner they're going to be. I just think this offense isn't going to put up that many points. And 9-8, honestly, for the way that I think their offense is going to play this year, it's pretty generous. I think they just miss out on the playoffs, unfortunately. Then you have the Washington Commanders. I know a lot of people are going to say 6-11 is nuts. For the roster that they have, the depth chart that they have, I get it. It boils down to one thing for me. Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett, we have no idea how good Sam Howell is going to be. We can't judge him off of 4 quarters of regular season play in Week 18 against not as many starters. Can't do it. So it's a big thing here. I believe that they confirmed he will be the Week 1 starter. I think Sam Howell could be good. I still think he's the worst quarterback in the division. I don't know how many points they're truly going to put up. You got an injury-prone tight end in Logan Thomas. Cole Turner was okay last year. I'd like to see him honestly take the starting role over. Terry McLaurin is as good as usual. Curtis Samuel as well. Diane Brown. They have good weapons. Let's just see. It all hinders on the quarterback play, to be quite honest with you. And I don't think that they're going to get great quarterback play from Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett. Moving on, you have the NFC West here. I have the San Francisco 49ers tentatively at 11-6. I'll be honest with you. I think this defense is going to take quite a hit with losing D'Amico Ryans. I know you still have the same players, well, minus like Jimmy Ward. You still have a lot of all-pros on this team, Tanaloa Hufanga, Fred Warner, guys like that. And they added Javon Hargrave, which was massive in the middle of that defense. I think their pass rush is going to be great. I think the secondary play is going to lack a little bit, to be quite honest with you. 11-6, still solid, whether it's Brock Purdy under center, which I assume it will be, or Trey Lance or Sam Darnold. I think that this is the most quarterback-friendly system that the NFL has ever seen. So regardless of who's under center, I honestly think that they'll be okay. 11-6 seems like a pretty safe medium. Then you have the Seattle Seahawks here. I really wanted to have the Seattle Seahawks win the division. It's just the out-of-division play. They had a tough schedule, so it was kind of tough for me to justify that. 10-7, I feel like is good. This is a team that has improved. Defensively, they added defensive anchors like Jermont Jones. They added Bobby Wagner back. Those are super great. Devin Witherspoon, Derek Hall, they added young, great players as well. I said this in my award prediction video earlier this week. There's really no head coach that I'd have coach up my young defense sprinkled in with some veterans other than Pete Carroll. I mean, the guy, he's the oldest head coach in the NFL, and he just still rocks it. I think he's going to make the absolute most out of this unit, to be quite honest with you. The offense, they're trusting Geno Smith. They paid him. He's going to make, on the cap, he's going to make $51 million this year. That is humongous money for Geno Smith. They added Jackson Smith-Njigba. They added Zach Charbonnet. This is going to be a good team. There's really no other way to say it. LA Rams, I feel like this is the absolute, I shouldn't say absolute ceiling for them. I think they could win eight games maybe. This roster is healthy, but it's just not there yet. I mean, they sold their souls to the devil to win a Super Bowl. And at the end of the day, if you asked any Rams fan, all 34 of them that exist, they would 100% do the same thing over again. And I get that. And I would probably do the same thing too. I'd probably give them my left arm, to be quite honest with you, to have the Jets win the Super Bowl at any point in my life. But regardless of that, this team, I think on offense, their offensive line, they like their unit. They added Steve Avila, which I thought was really good. They are getting Logan Bruss back, who was a third-round pick last year, who missed the entire season. I think their offensive line is going to be much better. They're still paying Joe Noteboom and Rob Havenstein a lot of money, so they're going to have to play regardless. Defensively, you're really asking Jacoby Durant to be the number one overall corner. It's going to be a little rough. I think defensively they're going to hinder quite a lot, and it's going to be 7-10, 8-9, something around there. Arizona Cardinals are going to suck. Moving on to the NFC North. Honestly, the toughest division for me. And that's even doing all the ones that I've done already. This one was super tough. I still think, I don't know where people are coming from saying that the Minnesota Vikings have fallen off this hard, that they're not still the favorites to win the division. I get it. I know Detroit, had a really nice resurgence last year. They went 9-8. They almost made the playoffs. The Chicago Bears had a really, really good offseason. They're banking on Justin Fields to take another step forward. I get it. The Minnesota Vikings are still the Vikings. They still have Justin Jefferson. They added Jordan Addison. They have TJ Hawkinson. I know the defense won't be as star-studded as last year, but it's still a really solid unit. I don't know where this hate for the Minnesota Vikings is coming from. Do I think that they're going to win 12 games or 13 games or be as good record-wise they were last year? No. But I still think that this is a really solid group, and I still think that they're the easy favorites for me to win the division at 10-7. Now, the Lions, same record as last year. They finally sneak into the playoffs. I think that this is an electric group. I think early on they're going to struggle just because, losing Jamison Williams and the offense, I know they have Amon-Ra St. Brown. They're going to have to rely on rookies a lot early on. Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, guys like that they're going to have to rely on. So I think it's going to take them a little bit to kind of find their stride. But this is an extremely high-powered offense with a very underrated defense. And the secondary is looking really, really nice for this Detroit Lions defense. So I'm super excited to see what happens. I hope they make the playoffs, and I have them squeaking into the playoffs as the number 7 seed. And the Bears, 7-10, I feel like is a massive improvement. And I feel like, to be honest with you, this is the most realistic scenario that we could have. I mean, I think the Bears will improve because with the moves that they've made, it's really hard not to improve. Everyone should be fired if they don't make an improvement after the names that they've added, after, I'm drawing a blank here, with the assets that they have, thank you to myself, with the assets that they have acquired for the future as well. I just, until Justin Fields can throw over 200 yards in a game consistently, I can't see them winning more than 7 games. And I really, really think that that's being generous. And this is not me hating on Justin Fields. I've done that in past videos. I'm not doing that this time. I just think realistically, I don't see where people think that they're going to win the division. I can't see it. I'm sorry. I just can't. And then you have the Green Bay Packers here at 6-11. I feel like this is the basement for them, literally and figuratively. I feel like they could win 8 games, maybe even 9 games, maybe even compete for a wild card spot, but we just don't know. We don't know what we're going to get from Jordan Love. I think he's going to be pretty good, but this seems like a first-year Aaron Rodgers type year where the Green Bay Packers weren't really that good the first year under Aaron Rodgers. A shockingly similar situation. There was a quarterback that was there for a really long time. He sat behind that quarterback for a long time, came in, showed flashes, didn't really have that great of a year. Next year had a much, much better year. I feel like that's what we're going to see with Jordan Love. It's a long-term process. We have to give him time, and we have to give him a little bit more on the offensive side. Moving on to the NFC South, you have I'm sorry. It's a bad division. It really is. 8-9, I feel like 8-9 from either of these 3 teams, because I can't see the Bucs winning 8 games or 9 games. 9-8 should easily win you the division. 8-9, I feel like could do it. I have the Saints at 8-9. Don't get me wrong. I'm not hating on the Saints. I just think that even though they have the best roster, to me, in the NFC South, I don't really think that they have a great roster overall. Kind of the same deal with the Falcons. I think that the Falcons could win this division. It depends on the quarterback play of Desmond Ridder. Same thing with the Carolina Panthers. If Bryce Young could develop at a rapid pace, we could easily see the Carolina Panthers winning this division. And then you have the Buccaneers between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. Even though they still have great weapons, I think it's time to blow it up. I think we see Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, guys like that get traded, and maybe not Tristan Wirfs. That would be crazy. But I think it's time that they need to blow it up and fully rebuild this team. So there you have it. There are my record predictions for the 2023-24 season. Now we're going to do this part live. This is the playoff picture. So we're going to move from week 1. We're going to scroll all the way down here to the wild card round. And these are some great matchups here. You have the Jets and the Jaguars, the Ravens and the Bills, which I think would be awesome. And then you have an explosive, high-powered matchup between the Miami Dolphins and the Cincinnati Bengals. And on this side, it's no slouches either. You have the Saints and the Cowboys. That could be an amazing matchup between the Minnesota Vikings and the Seattle Seahawks. And then you have the Detroit Lions against the San Francisco 49ers. So we're going to go through this part really quick since we have no idea what teams are going to be like. This is purely just a prediction. There's no sense in me even kind of like trying to explain myself here. I'm just going to go off of what I think would be the best for these matchups. So even though the Jets are going to play away against Trevor Lawrence here, I think that they come away with the W. I think the defense would shut them down. And I think Aaron Rodgers would do enough. I know people are going to say, oh, Aaron Rodgers in the postseason. I think Aaron Rodgers and that offense will do enough to dethrone the Jacksonville Jaguars here. This is tough. This is really, really tough for me here. The Bills don't match up particularly well with the Baltimore Ravens. I just think the Ravens secondary, I think Josh Allen would honestly pick the Ravens secondary apart, to be quite honest with you. And I really think that's what it would lie on there. So I'm going to go with the Bills over the Baltimore Ravens. And then here, unfortunately, this seems like a matchup that could be 77-75. I mean, that it's really that explosive. I do think the Bengals would come out on top. Joey B just knows how to win. I think that their offense, these are probably the two best offenses in the NFL, at least wide receiver and quarterback wise. It's going to be tough, but I think the Bengals do eke it out here. Then you move over to the NFC side. The Cowboys would be playing a road game against the New Orleans Saints. We've seen that the Saints in recent history have not been good at home in the playoffs. Regardless, I don't think that this team would be good enough to beat the Cowboys anyway. I think the Cowboys advance past them. The Seahawks and the Minnesota Vikings. I know what you're thinking, and I'm thinking the same thing. I think the Seattle Seahawks go into Minnesota, and I think that they beat the Minnesota Vikings the same way that the Giants went into Minnesota and beat them last year. History has a weird way of repeating itself. Just saying. And then I think despite the high-powered offense, despite Dan Campbell probably eating everyone's kneecaps in the entire stadium at Levi Stadium, I can't see this group of guys beating the 49ers in their own building. The 49ers are a playoff machine. They know how to win in the playoffs. If they're healthy, they're going to beat the Detroit Lions. So there you have it. There's the wild card round. We're going to move on to the divisional round here. We have, oh, God, that sucks as a Jets fan. Jesus Christ. We have the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals, the New York Jets, and the Kansas City Chiefs. A rematch of, I believe, the divisional round from last year between the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers, and the Seattle Seahawks and the Philadelphia Eagles. And here we go. I think they do it to them again. I think this is it for the Bills. I think that they're going to have to seriously consider making some big changes. I'm not talking about quarterback play or anything like that, just some big personnel changes along the way. I think the Bengals do beat the Bills. And it kills me to say I can't see the Jets, that young defense, going into Kansas City and beating them. As I think it would be close, but I can't see it happening. So we're going to have a rematch of the AFC Championship game from last year. And then on this side, I think that the Cowboys get their revenge. I think this is a much better Cowboys team. And I know people are going to say, oh, Dak chokes in the playoffs. Yeah, he does. It's true. But I think that I don't really believe so much in the San Francisco 49ers team as some other people do. I think that if the Cowboys get the chance at retribution, I think they do it. So I get the Dallas Cowboys at beating the San Francisco 49ers. And this is super tough here. Super, super tough. But I think that the Philadelphia Eagles do beat the Seattle Seahawks. And really the only reason why, I feel like it comes down to home field advantage. If this was in Seattle, I feel like I'd have a much different opinion. But I think Philadelphia is just a fortress at home, and I don't think that they would lose to this stingy Seattle Seahawks team. So we're going to move on to the conference championship round here. And you have a rematch of last year. We have 3 of the 4 teams from last year back. You have the Bengals, you have the Chiefs, you have the Dallas Cowboys, and you have the Philadelphia Eagles. Now I'm going to swap over to this side first because this is a divisional matchup. This would be one of the most highly anticipated conference championship games in NFL history, to be quite honest with you. I think we're going to see a Joe Burrow effect with Jalen Hurts a little bit here. I think that, he already got there and he didn't win. I can't see him going back and losing again. But I really don't think that the Dallas Cowboys march into Philadelphia with Dak Prescott and beat the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they go back to the Super Bowl again. I'm going to go with Philadelphia Eagles. And here, I think Joe Burrow enacts his revenge on the defense of the Kansas City Chiefs. I've said it a bunch of times before. I think Joe Burrow is going to win the MVP this year. I think he's going to lead the Bengals past the Chiefs, away from home, like he did 2 years ago, and he's going to advance the Cincinnati Bengals to the Super Bowl. And now we have one of the most explosive offensive Super Bowls that we've ever seen. And we are going to have the Philadelphia Eagles against the Cincinnati Bengals. And I just said it. I think Joe Burrow wins MVP. I think Joe Burrow wins the Super Bowl, and he solidifies himself as the best young quarterback in the NFL, besides for Patrick Mahomes. So there you have it. There's my full predictions for the 2023-24 NFL season, plus playoffs, plus Super Bowl. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys disagree, please let me know in the comment section below. I'm sure that you will. Please leave a like. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I went through my spiel earlier in this video. I just have a lot of great stuff coming up, and I'm really, really excited to show it to you guys, and I hope that you guys are along for the ride. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I see you in the next one.